All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, as always, recording Monday afternoon. Today, we're going to talk about the Commanders and the Steelers heading in opposite directions. We're going to talk about the MVP market and Coach of the Year as well. But let's start off, Drew, with the 4-1 Commanders, who now are the second favorite in the NFC East, plus 180. They're minus 150 to make the playoffs. They are 6.5-point dogs at the Ravens in their biggest test to date. Do you think there's any way to bet the Commanders at the moment?
Oh boy. Well, let's talk about sort of how to rate them first. This is a tough question. I don't think that there is any point in still trying to deny the fact that this is a top 10 offense the way that Jaden Daniels is playing. I think there's no noise really in what you're getting out of him in terms of is he able to run an NFL caliber offense and really just be able to make explosive plays. These are all emphatic yeses with the sample we've got so far. And, he went up against a Cleveland defense that has been unimpressive this year, but ultimately had a couple of standout plays in that game that really helped secure the win. So right now, I currently rank Washington as the 9th best offense in the NFL heading into Week 6. But the defense is a much tougher question. This is a unit that has huge, obvious holes when it comes to coverage. They did not do enough, in my opinion, in the offseason to really fortify the secondary and really just bring in talent on that side of the ball. And they brought in a lot of Dan Quinn's guys. And on paper, it looked like a unit that could finish bottom 3 when we started the season. But they're actually playing fine. The front 7 anchored by their interior, all-pro level players in Payne and Allen is very capable. Frankie Louvu is playing incredibly well at the linebacker position, which is making up for some other limitations with this scheme and the personnel there. So it's really kind of a question of how high do you rank the Commanders defense? Because if you put them above the Eagles, which is not crazy, then I'm not sure why the Commanders aren't at the top of the board here for the NFC East. I can tell you that with my current ratings, I would put the Commanders as the 25th best defense in the NFL, and I make them a hair better than an average team on a neutral, which is good enough for 12th best in the NFL, considering the state of some of the teams and players we have currently. But my make the playoff odds for the Commanders is up to 64.1%, considering their banked wins and just how to rate that offense, projecting them to have a mean 10.3 wins on the season. I have them winning the division almost 40% of the time. So I've gone full circle now to let's wait and see Daniels play some tougher defenses to no, this is all pretty real, and they should probably be closer to the top of the board in the NFC East.
Okay. Where would you set an over-under for where their offense will rank at the end of the season?
I think top 10 is, I think 9.5 is probably right. I think seeing Daniels hit a rookie wall or stumble is unlikely. If anything, it's still more about his frame and size and whether he can handle the cooler parts of the calendar when he's going to be taking some hits on some nasty turf there in Delmarva, not Delmarva, where they play Raljon. Sorry, the FedEx Field there. But assuming he plays 17 games. Daniels is pretty clearly going to finish in the top 10 among all quarterbacks, which means this offense is going to be in the top 10, in my opinion, in terms of EPA per play. Again, the fact that they have an explosive ability makes them difficult to scheme defensively. If you start seeing teams trot out, cover 2 shells and really try to take away the explosive passing plays, they can still absolutely knife you underneath with the combination they have between Robinson, who is running exceptionally well, again, behind an offensive line that is playing above their expectation, combined with the rushing threat of Daniels specifically. So they can matriculate, they can beat you over the top. And for all of these reasons, I think 9.5 is probably, if anything, maybe I'm still a little behind. Maybe they need to be higher than the number 9 in the NFL right now. But I'm still anchored a bit to my prior from them in the preseason, which is somewhat informed by this idea that Cliff Kingsbury maybe only has one speed in terms of his pitch. And once some defense puts together a little bit of a blueprint of how to stop sort of what is working that Cliff Kingsbury is doing, then, we start to see if he has, an off-speed pitch or a way to continue to adapt this offense. And, I think if he does, this is maybe top 5. And if he doesn't, then maybe there's some second half of the season regression. But, I think to this point, you have to say that surely the defensive personnel and their front seven, surely Cliff Kingsbury's scheme, and then Jaden Daniels himself are all overperforming expectations, and you have to just acknowledge it and adjust them up.
Okay, let's shift over to the Steelers, a team that is performing right at expectation. I was at Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium, whatever it's called now, on Sunday night for a very Steelers-type performance, almost a walking caricature of a Steelers-type performance. They are now minus 130 to make the playoffs, plus 375 to win the AFC North. Their win total fittingly is set at 8.5 because they seem like a very average team at the moment. They're 3-point favorites in Vegas with a total of 37 flat. I think the defense is somewhat of a known commodity now. Do you think there is any upside for the offense with Fields, or do you think that ultimately it might be the Russell Wilson show at some point?
Man, 1 week ago, I would have said that's crazy. Fields is going to have to lose like 3 straight games to really question making the switch. But he was pretty unimpressive last night. And just in general, none of the stuff that Art Smith seemed to want to do in the passing game felt like it was well schemed or well thought out, or really would, designed to take advantage of the weaknesses of the Cowboys. And Mike Zimmer is a good defensive coordinator. He earned his paycheck last night, surely getting the quality of play from some of the replacement players on the D line to where they weren't pushed around on the field. So it was a hugely disappointing effort from the Pittsburgh offense last night. And I went into week 5 with the Pittsburgh rated the 29th best offense in the NFL after going through and adjusting all my numbers. I have them as the 29th best offense in the NFL still. So I think there is a very, very, very low floor for that unit. And we saw it in play last night against a pretty badly injured defense. The Pittsburgh defense is really kind of the more interesting head scratching. How do you rate this team? Right now, I still have them as number 2 in the NFL. I still have a pretty healthy respect for their pass rush, but they seem to be getting by with a lot of chaos plays and a lot of voodoo that is not necessarily sustainable. So that could have been an absolutely lopsided beating last night and if not for the red zone inefficiencies of the Cowboys, if not for the turnovers, which all kind of went in and the penalties all going in the direction of the Steelers, that's probably a multiple touchdown loss at home against an injured team, which is not great. So right now I would make the Steelers just better than 50% chance to make the playoffs, 50.9% chance to make the playoffs. My mean win total for them is 8.6. So I am smack dab on market with this being a dead average team with a coin flip chance to make the playoffs. I have them at 21% chance to win all of a sudden runaway AFC North, but with the Baltimore Ravens. And I would say that the only kind of silver lining for anyone with Steelers hopes or futures or anything is that the difficult part of their schedule towards the end of the season, which is something that a lot of us, myself included, were beating the drum on in the preseason, now doesn't look so tough if you're going up against the likes of Dorian Thompson-Robinson and or a Bengals defense that can't seem to get off the field. So there portions of the schedule in the November December timeframe might actually not be as bad as they were when we had expectations for Browns and Bengals being super teams. So much for that. I think Steelers are going to have to continue to win these weird high level fluky game states that they find themselves in, and I think Fields finishing any higher than league average as far as QB EPA per play this season would be a surprise.
Okay, well, before we talk about the MVP market, which no Pittsburgh Steeler will be featuring in the discussion, this Sunday night, don't miss Joe Burrow and the Bengals as they travel east for a date with the New York Giants. Coverage of the matchup in the Meadowlands begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. All right, MVP market, much more of a mess, I think, than usual. 5 weeks into the season, we're recording this before the Chiefs play the Saints, which may have some ripple effects in this market. So we won't talk too much about Mahomes, but he is the favorite. As we record now, he's plus 300. Josh Allen is 6-1. Lamar Jackson plus 650, followed by CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, Sam Darnold. Do you think there's a bet to be made in this market at the moment?
This is turning into a year where no quarterback is likely to have a clear and obvious statistical case, which to me means it's probably just going to go to whichever quarterback is better between the 2 1-seed QBs. Right now, the 1 seed is pretty clearly in control in the NFC, in the hands of the Minnesota Vikings. I'm projecting them to get about 12, just under 12 wins this season. The fact that they already have 5 in the bank and that they're relatively healthy obviously helps. And I think that Darnold being sort of the, would you say, 4th in line in terms of the credit pie of Minnesota exceeding to the degree of a 1 seed is going to hurt his case here, which to me means if you can get the 1 seed in the AFC, then bang, there's your MVP. Patrick Mahomes obviously has the pole position, which is why him at the top of the board doesn't really move me. Like, yeah, okay, fine. He has been underwhelming this year. He is not putting up anywhere close to the statistical output we are used to, and his weapons continue to be depleted. So, it's going to take a little bit for him to really distinguish himself statistically. But Chiefs winning 14 games and Mahomes getting it by default because he's the best player in football and he has 3 Super Bowls. It's about time we give him a 3rd MVP. That all makes sense. But if anyone else can steal the MVP and steal the 1 seed in the AFC, then I think there is potentially a bet to be made. And the name that's obviously kind of in the mix is CJ Stroud. He is shortening. He's like in the 7-1 range now, I believe. And I have some preseason Stroud, so I'm hopeful that they can continue to win. But Bills Texans, to me, in hindsight, was a bit of a MVP elimination game for Josh Allen to a degree, because now the path for the Bills to get the 1 seed is extremely complicated. They need to do a lot of winning and hope other things happen because of their tiebreak situation. If between last week losing to Lamar Jackson and this week losing to CJ Stroud, Josh Allen has a very, very tough path to getting the award at this point. And I think that it's kind of fine to dismiss Lamar Jackson, I think, because the idea of him getting a 3rd MVP while not ever having playoff success is going to be held against him in the minds of a lot of voters, I suspect. And so even though he is playing better this year than he was last year in his MVP season, like clearly, in my opinion, and he's winning games with a worse team, I would still think that Jackson is a bet against at that price. You're looking at it about 650. So narrow path for CJ Stroud to sneak this one in past Mahomes, but he needs the 1 seed. And I think everybody else is basically a tier below where Mahomes would be right now. Does that all make sense to you?
I go the other way on Lamar a bit. I think if Lamar has the best case, I think he would just win. And he's having an insane statistical season at the moment. He's the favorite to be the 2 seed, I would say at this point, just given the strength of his team. He is, to your point, he's playing better than he was last year. And I think that like the voter fatigue aspect, that makes sense. But at the same time, like people still have to make a choice about who's been the best performed player. And if Lamar has the best case, like he has the pedigree, he has all the pedigree in the world. And I think that he would win. I don't know who's going to win this award, but I know who I'm not betting on at current prices. And that would be Sam Darnold, who, as much as people want to craft like, oh, if a player is the 1 seed, then they have X% chance. Like, I just don't think Sam Darnold meets the threshold to be good enough to win an MVP award. And maybe that can change, but he was atrocious in London. He was not good the week before. He got away with some stuff. His PFF grade is not great lately, and that matches what I've seen. So out on Darnold. Jaden Daniels, I just think with that defense, with the kind of lack of weapons, and the fact that like they're 6.5 point dogs in an NFL game this week. It's just hard for Jaden Daniels, I think, to get a resume that is going to win MVP at the end of the season. It'll probably win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And then Josh Allen, you just can't go 9 for 30 in a dome and expect to win MVP. And so I think that Allen's lack of weapons, lack of path to the 1 seed as well, that is really going to hurt him. I'll throw a long shot at you. What if I told you that the Atlanta Falcons got the 1 seed, which is like 8-1 in the market? Do you think there's any world where Kirk Cousins wins MVP at 35-1?
Well, I mean, if he keeps playing like he played on Thursday, yeah, sure. Their schedule is so easy too. Yeah, I mean, like there's very clearly a world where awards night is an Atlanta Falcons, just celebratory party, and we're just like, how this team stinks. Like, what in the world? Like, but they have banked the 2 most important wins they needed to this point in their season, which were wins against the Saints and the Bucks, and now their schedule gets pudding soft, and surely like there are still issues with that offense. There are still issues with Kirk Cousins' mobility, but if he's made it through the part of the season where the rust could have really, really impacted him and kept this unit grounded, and they're winning games fluky, but they round into form during the more important part of the season, then yes, they are very, very live to still get the 1 seed, and they are very live to be rewarded for doing so. Kirk Cousins is probably more importantly, should be at the top of the comeback player of the year market, I suppose. But yeah, I think the remaining schedule for the Falcons, if you haven't digested what that means in terms of likelihood that they get the 1 seed, then I would do it soon. The long shot I want to throw at you, I'm dismissing a little bit the Eagles being able to get a 1 seed because of how lowly, or just how much I hold their defense against them. But they're going to get their tackle and wide receivers back, and they're going to look a lot better than they did against the Buccaneers, surely, now with time off. Do you have an appetite for Hurts in the 30-1 range, or do you think that's too much has to go right for Philly to get the 1?
I think there's just a lot of different things working against Hurts. I don't think 30-1 is an egregious price or anything, but he's very, very unlikely to have the best case on merit, and best case statistically. He's been kind of terrible his first 4 games. So there's that aspect. He's very unlikely to have the best record overall. Even if he does get the 1 seed, I would say he's probably a dog to have the best record against the AFC team, just given that the Chiefs exist on that front. And then also, like, if you would ask people now, like voter types, who the MVP of the Eagles has been through 4 games, it's not Jalen Hurts. So I think all of those things are working against Hurts. Now, could he just turn it around? The schedule's pretty easy. Yeah, he could, but that feels like a 3 to 4% chance that he would turn it around to the extent where he would win MVP. And that's where he's priced at in the market. But I think that's the right place to be looking at, is guys like Hurts and Cousins, who do have a path to the 1 seed. If you throw out week 1, which, maybe you shouldn't throw out week 1 as it's one of the 5 weeks of the season so far. But if you do throw it out, Kirk Cousins is 5th in EPA per play. He's as an elite PFF grade. He played at a fringe MVP level last year in Minnesota before he got hurt. Certainly doesn't feel like Kirk Cousins is going to win MVP, but didn't feel like Dak Prescott was going to win MVP this time last year. And he was the favorite with a month to go, and he could well have won it had he not let go of the rope in Buffalo.
You know what's funny about the NFC right now? I'm projecting 9 teams to have between 9.5 and 10.5 wins. There is that is a huge cluster of teams, and then there's only one team that's head and shoulders above, and it's because of the wins they banked, and it's the Vikings. Yep. So literally, any one of those 9 step forward, you're gonna have a chance to do it. That includes Jordan Love. That includes Brock Purdy. It definitely includes Kirk Cousins with that schedule. I guess it includes Goff. I guess it includes Carr. And then, Hurts is in the mix and Daniels is in the mix. So, man, this thing is wide open. And, distinguishing yourself it's going to take the 1 seed this year, in my opinion. And if you have if you have a path to a 1 seed, then you're live.
Indeed. All right. One of the biggest matchups in college football kicks off on Saturday night. Both Ohio State and Oregon have national title hopes, and they'll battle it out under the lights in Eugene. Coverage of the top 10 showdown begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, Coach of the Year before we get out of here. Kevin O'Connell is the favorite at plus 130. Dan Quinn is the second favorite at plus 340. They are tier one by themselves in the market. Sean Payton, Mike McDonald, Raheem Morris, Jim Harbaugh follow. Do you think there's any bet to be made in this market?
Okay, so the top of the market, I think, should be tighter between O'Connell and Quinn. Right now, I have them almost a dead heat in terms of exceeding their win total expectations. And I think there are contributing factors that are going to hurt O'Connell more than can hurt Quinn. I know that obviously having a rookie of the year breakout takes a little bit of the shine away from Quinn, but a lot of what is going on with Minnesota is pretty clearly Brian Flores coordinating this defense. And if your assistant coach is the assistant coach of the year, then do you really get coach of the year, or are you kind of riding the coattails of an assistant? Those questions will be asked. And I think that may ultimately, at least it's going to at least throw enough shade on O'Connell that Quinn could snatch this from his grasp. I agree that Peyton belongs very much in the mix on the next tier. And then that's basically where I kind of completely lose the thread with the market at this point. Mike McDonald is effectively out of the mix, considering the injuries they sustained and really just how long it's going to take that defense to look like we thought they were going to look. Raheem Morris, he could again, win the rest of his games and be in the mix, but it's going to be very, very tough for me to ever get around to him being kind of on this tier. Same with Jim Harbaugh, same with D'Amico Ryans, same with Mike Tomlin. Matt LaFleur has taken a huge step back, although he keeps winning games despite really uneven performance out of his quarterback. And if Jordan Love has the second half of the season that he had last year, then he could very well bring himself back into the discussion. But this feels pretty narrow right now. And I think it's really just this top three. And if you made me make a bet on any of one of them right now, I guess I would take Quinn at plus 340. Sean Payton at 11-1. I mean, the price is there, but boy, if this Broncos team gets to 9 wins, that's going to be it's going to be pretty impressive, and it's going to be mostly their defense. And I think you're going to have to give some credit to, what Vance Joseph is doing more so than, giving the coach of the year nod to Mr. Payton, but we'll see. Do you agree that the margin between Quinn and Kevin O'Connell should be narrower than the market makes it?
Yes, I would have Quinn favorite in the market. I think that there's a couple of things. One, I think Nick Sirianni a couple of years ago was a bit of a cautionary tale for Kevin O'Connell of a guy who started out extremely hot, unbeaten for a stretch, and then just kind of tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season, which is just kind of naturally likely given that you're not expected to just never lose games, and O'Connell will start losing games. I think as well the fact that it is very much a question, both among people who follow the NFL, people who vote on these awards, who the best coach is on Minnesota, which hurts O'Connell. And I think that O'Connell's path, it was a lot cleaner when Sam Darnold was looking really good in the first couple of weeks. And now if Darnold is going to look like he did in London, which I think he kind of is because I don't think he's that good, then I think that makes O'Connell's case very messy. And so just in a nutshell, given the kind of momentum factors, I think that Quinn winning the NFC East, just in a nutshell, likely beats O'Connell as a 1 seed. Now, people could disagree with that. That's just my opinion. And I think, like the way I price it out anyway, Quinn winning the NFC East is more likely than O'Connell getting the 1 seed as well. So you factor that in. And also, I think, like, if O'Connell doesn't get the 1 seed and he's coughed up, he's got a 2-game lead on everyone at the moment. If he coughs up the 1 seed, then I don't think he's very likely to win. If he's a division-winning 2 seed at 12-5 or whatever, I don't think that gets it done. Whereas there are worlds where Dan Quinn can win as a wild card that goes 11-6 or whatever. So I think that Quinn's case is a bit more resolute. Maybe the most insightful thing that I can share with people that may not know this, but if you were to ask me to price a market on who is the most beloved coach by NFL media, it would be Dan Quinn that I would make the favorite. Like, he is just universally really liked. The vibe's king, the backwards cap, just a really nice guy, gives time to people, gives time to journalists, gives time to the type of people who vote on this award. So I think that Quinn, look, there's not a ton of meat on the bone. Like I always say with this stuff, like, there's 12 weeks left and there's a lot that can happen in 12 weeks when you're backing plus 340, but I don't think that really reconciles with the other prices around outcomes around the Commanders. Now, people say that Jaden Daniels steals a lot of credit, which I agree, he does. It would be cleaner if Quinn was the offensive mind on the team instead of the defensive mind. But I think where Quinn gets an upgrade over O'Connell from a narrative perspective is that Quinn, he gets the tortured franchise that he has turned around the culture for. And I think that is a big thing that is kind of becoming part of the discourse around the Commanders, is the new energy and culture and vibe and all of that stuff that Dan Quinn really ties into. And I think that will carry him. Now, that stuff is a little abstract and can't always be priced with an immense amount of specificity. But those are the things that I would weight. And for all those reasons, I would put Quinn above O'Connell. Do you think there's any long shot that is compelling?
So 2 questions. Well, before moving to long shot, 2 questions for you. I'm projecting the rest of the season. I have the Vikings as a 12-win 1 seed. I have the Commanders as a 10-win 2 seed. Does Quinn beat O'Connell head-to-head in that world?
Yes, he does, and I don't think it's close. Like, maybe someone else could win the award at that point, but between that head-to-head, I think Quinn wins, and I think he wins pretty decisively just because he will have won the NFC East, which to a lot of people, I mean, I think to everyone is kind of ludicrous. Like, they were 18-1 or whatever to win the division before the season. And the main thing there is that I think O'Connell's case is a little more fragile, and if he has closed the season 7-5, I don't think he's winning.
Yeah. Okay. That was the part 2 of the question, which is these teams are all very flawed. Every good team in the NFL right now is not really that good, certainly by historic standards, right? Like, the fact that we're talking about a 10-win 2 seed being possible is amazing. But that's the way this sims right now. Like, sorry, like, the math set is saying that, like, you could very realistically have a 10-win 2 seed. Considering that a lot of teams are going to kind of lose throughout the middle of the season, this does feel like the kind of year where getting involved with some absurd long shots is not a bad idea. But again, like, you're going to need luck, and you're going to need, you're just going to need somebody to step forward and win, just consistently win through this middle portion of the season and get better every week. And I think just in general, like, if you said what one offense is going to look substantially better in December than it looks right now, it's the Packers for me. I think that, just counting on them being better at the end of the season is fine. youth and Jordan Love coming off the injury, and all of those factors kind of would lean me in that direction. So LaFleur, still have some hope that he could re-enter the conversation as a mega long shot. And then, any other kind of middling team right now that steps forward is going to put themselves in the conversation. Who among the long shots really stands out to you? Because outside of LaFleur, I'm scratching my head here.
What I would say is that like there's still so much time that a lot of weird stuff can happen. Like, what if Jonathan Gannon wins the division? What if Dan Campbell goes 14-3 or 15-2? What if Matt Eberflus gets to 12 wins or whatever, and the defense is viewed as one of the best in the league? What if Drake May starts and is good and is the unknown project quarterback? What if he's good? And the Patriots, who are like 20-1 to make the playoffs, and Gerard Mayo right now is 120-1 to win Coach of the Year. Like these things, like these are all unlikely outcomes, but it's Coach of the Year. It's the number one case. It's usually an outlier outcome that surfaces, like Kevin Stefanski having 5 different quarterbacks, or Brian Daboll going 9-7-1, which actually that's not an outlier. That's pretty much almost a little bit better than what was expected, but he still won the award anyway. It usually is strange things that happen. And so something like that could upend the top 2, but I think the ordering of the next guys after the top 2 is a little suspect in the market. Like, I just don't think Mike Tomlin is going to win this award. I think the path is extremely narrow. Like, there's no way to me that Todd Bowles is more likely to win Coach of the Year than Jonathan Gannon or Dan Campbell. So I think that it gets a little bit wonky after the top 2-3 guys. With Peyton, like, everyone associates him with offense. If the offense is bad and they just kind of squeak their way to 10-7 after winning 8 games last year, on paper, like Sean Payton winning 10 games with Bo Nix seems remarkable, but I just don't think that's going to resonate more than Quinn or perhaps O'Connell or perhaps an outlier case that emerges. So, I would be just monitoring those long shots as they kind of develop a bit more steam, perhaps the market is slower to move. But I think Dan Quinn should be the favorite here for now.
Yeah, I like that you nodded to Gannon and Campbell there, because those are the kind of the guys that, besides LaFleur, those are the guys that stood out to me as like there's a case there.
Yeah, I make it around 9-1 that the Lions win 14+ games.
Wow.
Dan Campbell's 30-1. So does that reconcile? And also the good thing about Dan Campbell, and I think a good thing that you should always pay attention to in these awards, is that like Dan Campbell can kill Kevin O'Connell with his own bare hands, so to speak, in this market at least, because
that's true
twice and he can beat him right
off the bye.
Yeah, he can eliminate Kevin O'Connell from the market, and then it's just Dan Quinn in his backwards cap to take out next. But yeah, I wouldn't write off Campbell. If he has the best season in Detroit Lions history, that team weirdly doesn't have any buzz at the moment. There's nothing, like no one's really talking about the Lions. If they get to 14 wins and they're winning every week, then they will start to be talked about, and that buzz will come.
They do have a little buzz. We're going to cover it tomorrow. They're getting bet like somebody knows the final score against the Cowboys next week.
Yeah, well, they got a rough go on that matchup last time. All right, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks for those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also, a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick. We'll see you soon.